We're here with one of Bermuda's most noted sailors, Peter Bromby. We're out on the Great Sound in preparation for the America's Cup. Not a cut and dry race.
No, the wind will change, and it'll change every day. And so, if you really want to make the best vantage point to see the race, you'll want to look into the forecast for the next day. If you're planning to go and watch the races, so you'll say, okay, the wind's like today, for instance, the wind is out of the north, so they're likely going to have the windward mark probably somewhere up in the Leafroy House area, so somewhere maybe Gray's Bridge or maybe West End Sailboat Club will have a great viewing of the race in this wind direction. And then the leeward mark will be down more by Morgan's Point. So down in a typical wind direction like today, that would be where you'd want to try and position yourself to get the best view. Now, the very next day, you could have the wind out of the west, and in that case, you might, depending on where they put the marks, you might want to be up on the tracks and then be more over by Hawkins Island to watch the leeward mark, and with the windward mark up underneath the tracks somewhere. So it's not like other sports where you know exactly where the racetrack is going to be on any given day. It's a set track. With sailing, the wind never blows out of the same direction, it's unusual for it to blow out of the same direction particularly in Bermuda, for 2-3 days at the same. So it's going to change, and so you may have to move around to get better vantage points. There are some points that will always give you a great viewing. For instance, I mean, the guy who lives over here on Cavello Bay Point, he can't help but have a good view. For instance, Mr. Orridge over there where his house is located. And you would get a pretty good view from up on top of Ceola Hill. You'd be elevated. That would be a great place to watch the race. Because with the elevation, you'll see the whole sound. Spanish Point, if the wind was in the northeast, the windward mark would be near Spanish Point, and the leeward mark would be down by Lantana. So if you see what I'm saying, depending on the wind direction, can change where you would want to go and watch the race every day.
Now, you've been up to San Francisco. It's high-tech, cutting edge. These are not cheap boats. What's your take on that?
No, what I found when I went and visited one of the teams, and what I saw was something very different to the typical type of sailing that the average Bermudian or the typical sailor would do. What they're building more resembles an airplane almost than a sailboat. It's these things have wings, all made out of carbon fiber. They have less rope than the typical sailing boat. Things are more controlled by hydraulics, as opposed to, that's not the type of thing you'd find on your typical sailboat. They go at speeds of in excess of, by the time they get here, they'll probably be doing speeds in excess of 50 mile an hour on some days when it's, we've got 15 mile an hour wind or more. They will exceed, speeds that the average person's motorboat could do. Consequently, that changes the game. It's not going to be like, for instance, if you're watching the Comet race or you're watching Bermuda fitted dinghies where people go and follow the races. Because of the speeds of these things, it'll be very difficult to let people in their own leisure craft get really close to the course, because these things change direction, the boats change direction, and before you know it, at 50 mile an hour, you can't get out of their way, so that will be typically a little different than your normal sailboat race. So you'll probably have to anchor up somewhere in a zone, watch the race. That will be something different for what people were used to.
I've heard some of the sailors, like Sir Russell Coote, say that because of the close proximity of the sound, there's some extra challenges as well.
Yes, and what they're trying to do is they're trying to keep it close. If the sound, let's say hypothetically, if the sound was much bigger than 5 times bigger, the boats would separate. They're trying to make this for television, and so the close proximity of the sound actually lends itself to making a more exciting television show, in terms of there'll be more crosses, they'll be in closer quarters to one another, and it'll be very challenging for the sailors to sail these boats, which typically have been more geared towards speed as opposed to being able to maneuver them. So that will be one of the challenges for the designers, I would think, because of the close proximity of the sound, that they'll need these boats to turn and maneuver ever better than they have in the past.
You looking forward to it?
Oh, I can't wait to see it. I mean, it's a dream come true for me to see this come to our town. I mean, it's unbelievable.
You think we'll do well?
Yeah, I think, there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of people that will have to get involved, and they'll have to, pull in the same direction. But at the end of the day, Bermuda, I'm confident, will show itself off in a way that is, that it will reflect well for all of us.
You've heard some of the fallout. It's a rich guy sport. Is it going to benefit the community? What's your take on that?
There's a lot of reality to that, but trust me, everybody will feel the economic impact. If you're, let's say for instance, you're the bartender at Cambridge Beaches. Well, Cambridge Beaches, I'm sure we'll see, or any other hotel, I'm just using them as an example, we'll see a spike in their room rates. So now the guy who's the waiter, his gratuity check's going to get bigger. I'm look right at the bottom of the scale in terms of the trickle down. So he's going to basically have a higher room rate. So now his paycheck's going to get bigger. That's a reality, and as some people don't want to admit to that. But that is the trickle down effect. That's how it'll work. There'll be people that will rent houses to people coming here, all sorts, not just the sailors, but to the media, to spectators. In the last Cup, they had 75,000 people, I think, or more, watching the race every day in the village there. Now, we're not going to be able to accommodate anywhere near that kind of number, but you will see a big spike in terms of the tourists that come here to watch the race. Our challenge right now is we know when they're leaving. Our challenge is how fast we can get them in here, how fast we can put facilities in that they can come, and basically we can begin to feel the economic impact for every person in Bermuda.
And that's going on now in Dockyard, isn't it?
Yeah. There's already, for instance, I know there's work going on a building, the old police mess, people may know. Well, there's guys up there that are working almost around the clock on it. If the America's Cup wasn't coming here, that place would be sitting there and falling apart. That's the truth of the matter. There's buildings in Dockyard where they've been working on them now for months that ultimately will be property of Wedco that will get an upgrade that previously they couldn't find the money to fix the roof. So these are all things, this is all economic impact. There are jobs in construction, it has already begun. Not everybody wants to admit it if you're not one of the people working for the firms that are, because you're still unemployed. But the reality is, if it wasn't coming here, our unemployment today would be worse than it is right now.
Team Oracle should be here soon as well, yes?
Sure. From what I gather, they're sometime in the next month will be starting to come. I know they're starting to rent houses in the island. They have an office set up in town, and they've been sailing a 45-foot catamaran over in San Francisco. Well, it's stopped now, and it's stopped because they're packing it up and they're putting it all in containers and it'll be shipping here. If you're say for instance, if you're the guy moving containers around, you have a tractor trailer, well, there's gonna be work coming around. There's gonna be work for cranes. There's gonna be work for all sorts of things. Unbelievable. And for instance, my team called me and said, Peter, look, what's your industrial gas supply like in the island? How does that work? So I'm down to tools and equipment, and I'm trying to figure out what gases they're going to need. They're going to need things, some of them are specialty, and we need to make sure they're available in the island. Well, all of a sudden, tools and equipment is going to be selling more industrial gas, stuff that they probably didn't even believe that this was going to land in their lap. But, that's the type of trickle down that's going to happen. And so when people say, that it's not going to benefit me, that's BS. Every person in Bermuda, one way or the other, and to different degrees, will feel some of the economic impact of this Cup coming here. If you're a taxi driver, if you're a waiter, you're the chambermaid in the hotel, everybody will get a piece of this.
Okay, that works for me.
Yep. 3, 2.
And it all starts this year, October.
Yeah, in October. Well, like you said earlier, it actually begins to be sooner than that with boats coming here to train. But the first races that you'll see here will be in October, as you said, and they'll be what they call the America's Cup World Series. And we've been lucky enough to get one of the events. it's going to be running out of Hamilton as opposed to the rest that will be run out of Dockyard. So it'll be a little different. It'll help spread the economic pie down into Hamilton as well. And they will basically, that'll be about a 3-day regatta here, but it'll probably be 10 days of setup for that 3-day regatta. So in total, there'll be mayhem going on around Bermuda in October while they set up for the war. I was talking to one of my team members just last night about it. And although there's only 3 days of sailing, it's 10 days of preparation for that 3 days of sailing.
So we have a lot of work to do.
Sure, there's lots of work, and it's for all different people. I mean, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation. James wouldn't have a job right now if the America's Cup wasn't coming to Bermuda. That's the facts.
Okay. I think that's it. Anything else you want to add in terms of? So you said it's like a dream come true for you. You're confident that Bermuda's going to pull it off and showcase well.
Yeah, I think that's true. Bermuda typically, I've been around the world, and for me, what I'm really excited about is in my sailing career, I've been able to enjoy some hospitality that as I've traveled the world, I've been extended hospitality that the average person would never have seen. And I've made friends all over the place. And now, all of a sudden, where they never had an excuse because we never had a star event in Bermuda, now all of a sudden, a lot of my friends are involved in the Cup, and they're coming to Bermuda, and I can't wait to show Bermuda off to them and return some of the hospitality that's been afforded to me.
Okay. I think that's good. I think that's great. Peter, these are big, massive boats. They're worth a lot of money. As you say, they travel at high speeds. You are familiar with some of the problems that the Round the Island boat race has with spectator boats and so forth. How are they planning on policing this?
Sure. I don't know the exact way they'll do it, but I'm sure there'll be zones that you'll be able to, you may even have to purchase a ticket to go into that zone with your own boat. And like I said, I don't know exactly how they plan on doing it. I'm sure there is a plan, but you won't have the freedom to move around like you're accustomed to, for instance, when you're at dinghy races or the comet race, and a lot of that has to be that way because of the speed that they're traveling at. You just can't, and the the television show that's being produced, you can't have spectators getting in the way. So we all have to be a little tolerant here, and we all have to abide. There'll be marshals that'll send you where you have to go, and to be quite honest, you probably will be better off to watch it from land than you will be from out on the water, because there'll also be big sponsors boats, maybe 180-foot mega yachts, and if you're in a little boat like we are and you're in the second row, how much of it are you going to see? You know that the sponsor with the big mega yacht, he will be buying the ticket for the front row seat, and you in your little boat will probably be in a bit of a nosebleed, if you would, in the sailing equipment. So.